that we will be talking about. So we'll have a CAEP office update and greetings from the CAEP office, and then we'll move forward into the regional network meeting. Now, the regional network meeting is structured a little differently, and it's based on the feedback we received from our spring regional network meetings, as well as that topics poll that we sent out to everyone prior to the meeting, because we wanted to make sure that we were sharing information as well as engaging in dialogue around topics that are important to you at this time. And so how it's going to work is one of the pieces of feedback we received is our attendees wanted to make sure that our partner agencies who are participating with us had enough time to share. And so our partner agencies, CASAS, WestEd on Wednesday, and OTAN, as well as CAEP TAB, will be sharing information with you based on the topic of importance that you share in that poll that we have sent out. And then we'll share the results, and then we'll engage in dialogue around it. So you'll receive information, but then you'll also have ample opportunity to share information as well. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone understands kind of how things will flow during today's regional network meeting. So now I will pass it over to Javier, who will bring us greetings from the CAEP office. Javier.
Hello, thank you, Veronica. This is Javier Romero. Carolyn Zachary, my counterpart from the California Department of Education, could not be here due to a scheduling conflict. I wish to thank you all for participating in this process and giving us input. And I also, as you all know, we're terribly short-staffed at this moment. Neil Kelly is out ill. He's recovering well. I want you all to know that. But I want to take this moment to really thank Renee Collins, who's new in her leadership role with our TAP, and Veronica and Holly for stepping up during this time. They've stepped up to help the CAEP office during this time. They've always has been, but especially now where we're short-staffed. So I want to thank Renee, Veronica, and Holly, and also all our contractors, which you'll be hearing from today. I've been out of the office for the last week, and so I don't have much of an update for you right now. But if there was anything you wish to hear about, please put it in your chat, and we will follow up with that information. So I don't have much more to share with you right now, and I just want to turn it over to Renee Collins, our director for our TAP, for an update that she has for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pierre, and good afternoon, everybody. I just have a couple quick announcements. I wanted to say that an advisory team of California Adult Education Program K-12 and community college leaders has been meeting to develop a student technology intake survey that can be used by all adult education agencies in California to collect a common set of data. This team formed after an earlier CAEP office hours that we had earlier this summer, and the discussion had been centered around the need for a statewide survey of students' technology needs. By collecting a common set of data, the CAEP office will have an aggregate set of data to share with folks like the state superintendent, legislators, and other potential funders. And then using disaggregated data by agency, agencies could use the data for WASC, board reports, federal program monitoring, and other reporting. The goal is to distribute the survey to the field by the end of August. As the survey applies to all adult education students in all programs, the plan is to post the survey to the California Adult Education Program website, caladulted.org, where it will easily be accessible. Students will complete the survey online, or alternatively, there will be a paper-based option and agencies can input them on behalf of their students. Part of my objective in sharing this information with you today is that you can work with your agency to determine how to best disseminate the survey to the greatest number of students. So for those students who are already potentially active in classes, perhaps your teachers can share the link with students and have them complete it during class, or it can be conducted during intake during your student registration. And you may come up with other ways that it could be taken. There is also a secondary survey that I wanted to make administrators aware about. The survey is about agencies' reopening plans. And the second survey will go out via an email blast to all adult education administrators in California. This survey will also be released in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So as part of the CAEP office, we want to thank you for taking the time to look out for these surveys and to complete both of them as they come in. So that's my update. I'm going to send it back to Veronica, please.
Thank you, Renee. So everyone, please be on the lookout for the statewide student accessibility intake survey. And now I will turn it over to Jay, who will update us on how CASAS is supporting the field at this time. Jay?
Okay, I guess I'll just start. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. But I'll just run through the slides quickly. A lot of them are ones that I think a lot of you have probably seen, but just all in the name of responding to things you can do to get started or considerations. So we're starting with those Octave memos. We spent a lot of time talking about the federal updates over the last few months. There's been 3 of them since we've been in, shutdown quarantine mode. The most recent is 20-5, which came out at the end of May. So the ones before that started opening up and allowing remote testing. The reminder is before any of this happened, remote testing flat out wasn't allowed. You had to have an in-person proctor present to do any of this. So a couple of the early memos allowed remote testing. Now this one at the end of May kind of doubled down on that. And it basically is setting it up 2 ways. It's basically allowing you to place for federal reporting without a pretest, but at the same time, it's requiring that pretest and post-test to get a gain just like always. So back to the first bullet, technically since 2009, a pretest has been required to qualify for federal reporting, period. That is, without it, you don't really make the map at all. So what this memo is saying is, given all of these circumstances now and how hard it is to test, it's no longer required to have a pre-test or a post-test to qualify for reporting. You can use informal assessment, and self-report a person into one of those 12 levels. It's kind of, as I've been saying though, it's kind of talking out of the other side of his mouth, and it's all, the feds are also saying, if you want to get a gain, you still need to complete a pre-test and a post-test like usual. So you might say the feds are kind of staying on both sides of the fence for now. If you want to see that most recent memo, you can go to that link at the bottom. So again, this is setting up for a new way to place if it's easier for you. And we're also providing updates on remote testing. So if you're still doing pre and post testing, you have that as an option. So we'll say next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit on remote testing. We've had lots of workshops that get into these details. We don't have the time to get into all the gory details. We're just providing an overview today. But back to those federal memos, they allowed remote testing for the first time. And they also left it up to all states to decide, thumbs up, thumbs down on whether to allow it. Making a long story short, CDE has definitely gone thumbs up on behalf of California. In doing so, it submitted a memo to the feds that basically detailed how we're going to do remote testing in California. So I won't read all the bullets, but it basically gave a lot of information related to test security, related to identifying the student, and following all of the technical protocol to do so, in the memo to get the federal approval. That was done in early May. If you want any information on how CDE officially, threw its hat in the ring to allow remote testing, you can go to the link at the bottom of that slide. Next slide, please. Okay, with that, we also, updated our statewide and local assessment policy. So with the CDE memo, we put together a remote testing agreement. So we said there in early May, you need to complete that if you want to do remote testing. The remote testing agreement technically was folded into the local assessment policy. So one area of confusion is a lot of you did complete that remote testing agreement in May. And it's a little confusing, but the bottom line is you need to re-up and do this again for program year 2021 here once you decide to do remote testing this year. So I think it does confuse people because a lot of you did it in May and now in July, August, you're doing it again right away. So to be clear, just to give you some explanation, the reason for that is technically that remote testing agreement is part of that local assessment policy, which again, you're required to update at the beginning of each program year. So the remote testing policy fits into that. So we've been talking a lot more about local assessment policy for that reason. And back to the slide, another piece of it is in the statewide policy, there's a section called Appendix C. This is absolutely not new. This has existed for 10 or 12 years, and it's the specific part of our statewide assessment policy that's always been there to address issues related to distance learning. As such, you know, it's the section, of course, that nobody ever really looked at, nobody ever really knew about because the number of people doing distance learning was small. But you might say everybody in the state, myself included, has been dusting off this section over the last few months because it's obviously increased importance in recent months. But to be clear, there's been a section of our statewide policy that's always been there to detail things like what are distance learners, how to deal with testing, how to deal with distance learning curricula, measuring instructional hours, and so on. So if you want that sort of guidance, there is official statewide guidance that's always been there. For all the obvious reasons, this has been thoroughly updated for 2020, 2021. So a lot of updated things related to recording hours, you know, using educational software, and of course, all the new things we've done related to remote testing. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the benefits will go both ways. Again, for federal reporting, you're not required to test like usual to qualify, but you still need the pre and post test to get a gain. So that's the most obvious advantage to testing. You need it to achieve MSGs. You know, there's a lot of different options now where you can use remote testing. We're looking at expanding the ratios. We have some pilots going on now with much better ratios than what we currently offer on our official page. So we're hoping to improve that sooner rather than later. You know, once that's done, hopefully it will be something that more people can do on a broader scale than now. But in any case, it's still what's out there to achieve gains, and it's still the primary way we're measuring progress in our programs. Next slide, please. You know, that said, we admit there's been challenges, a lot of uncertainty about everybody's schedule. You know, equity's been a big issue, whether it's students having the technology or maybe they have it, but their kids are using it for school or whatever, whether it's, you know, they don't have it at all, or whether they're just don't have much time to use it. Either way, that makes remote testing a challenge. You know, what maybe they have technology, maybe that's not an issue, but a lot of, oh, I'm sorry, MSG is measurable skill gain. I'm sorry, I missed that question, sorry. Anyway, whether it's a budget issue, whether it's just you don't have staff available, whether it's the students don't really have the technology to do it, you know, whatever the reason is, you know, we talked about this all summer long. I've definitely heard lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons why this has been a challenge. You know, equity's been the biggie. The fact that the ratio, you know, is tough. You're only allowed to do up to 5 at once. A lot of you say that's just not enough to make it worth your while, whether it's staff time or budget or both. Lots of challenges as well. Next slide, please. Okay, general information, we offer it on a 1-to-1 and 1-to-5 ratio. There's some really good videos out there for how the process is. Admittedly, this was a little bit more difficult than we expected. We had a tough time getting a good video that really illustrated this process well. After a month or so, though, we really got a video that explained it. So some people come out of it saying it's really great. Others come out of it not being so sure. But whether you walk out of it loving it or not, you can definitely watch the video and definitely come out of it with a really good understanding of exactly what the process entails. So you can go to that top link, and it's a 5-minute or so video that goes through the guidelines, that simulates students and staff and all the protocol you go through to get things set up and started with remote testing. There's another video that goes through more the technical process on registering test stations. We also have lots more information on our website, some guidance documents, a couple instructional PowerPoints. We have it on remote pre-post testing, on remote COAPs and remote sit. So long story short is lots and lots and lots of good information on the website that you can use to get started with remote testing and or find out what you need to know to make a more informed decision. There's also that testing agreement as well as the CDE memo to the feds that basically gives the official declaration that we're doing this in California. Next slide, please. Here's more on COAPs and SIT, just a screenshot again, a couple recordings, some guidelines, a couple FAQs, documents. We bring this one up especially because I'll say overall, I'm using a broad stroke here, the feedback we've received on citizenship interview and COAPs remotely, overall definitely more positive than pre and post. The steps are not quite as involved for this as for pre and post. And in general, the process with students, I'd say the average agency has said this is a little bit easier process. Next slide, please. Some other considerations. Some of you have done parking lot testing. We have an agency in Michigan that kind of piloted it, so there is some official information from them. There's a YouTube video of a webinar that was done in Michigan on this process. So if you're interested in doing that, there's some information you can access on this also. We've been looking at remote options with an on-site proctor. A couple agencies have been piloting that. Testing on site with social distancing. We have another pilot on that. We're working on improving the technology as well. So you probably know this better than I do, but lots of creative thinking going on statewide and nationwide on this. Several pilots to look at ways to try to improve this and make this more accessible to more students. Next slide. Okay, this is just a chart showing all the technical options, 1-to-1 or 1-to-5. Next slide. Okay, another one is the reading level indicator, or RLI. This should be available this week. It's new in TE. This is, you might say, in response to that federal memo where you can get students placed. So the advantage is you can basically have the students do it on their cell phone. It doesn't require access to the computer. It also doesn't require you to schedule it or have a proctor available. Those are two really big advantages. So the big advantages are no proctor, no computer necessary. The disadvantage is that third bullet is, again, it's not giving you an official pre or post test score. It's just giving you the basic information you need to place that student into the appropriate federal level. So a lot of you are saying that's all you need right now. You know it's going to be difficult to do the pre-test, but you at least want something instead of nothing so you can get the student enrolled and make sure they're in the appropriate class, appropriate level, appropriate program. So we have this reading level indicator. It's like an appraisal, but again, unsupervised, you might say, and accessible online. Here's the form number. It should be available. We released it in early August to a pilot. It should be available to everybody here at a build here the next couple of days. Next slide, please. One more slide on this, I think. So yeah, the way it works is a lot like that employment and earnings survey is you send out invitations just like you're doing kind of when you do that core performance survey. That is, you can send invitations by text, by email, or by both. So it's using that same student portal technology as the E&E survey. So you use the demographics lister and you select students for using it. So if you have 10 students you know need to enroll, you select them from the demographics lister, select whether to send a text, email, or both. Next slide. And then, again, send it using the same mechanism you're familiar with that employment survey. And then you can see the results in the test lister. So it would be just like a regular appraisal where you might need to filter to look at appraisal forms rather than progress forms, but you can review RLI results in the test lister just like other appraisals. So it appears to the student like a regular full appraisal would. That is, some hard items, some easy items, and everything in between. But again, the difference is the student can complete this on her own or his own. It also can complete it using a cell phone rather than a computer. That is, we think it should be accessible to a lot more students with those stipulations. Again, it's not a real pretest, but it should at least allow you to place students and move forward with, you know, your instructional programs here in the fall. Next slide, please. Okay, another new feature is the quarterly data submission wizard. Technically, this is in TE now, but it's not something you really need to use until that first quarter, October 31 data submission. So, you know, again, you're submitting the data and DIR like always, but it will all be automated. For the last couple years, the data part has been automated, but with the DIR, you still had to physically submit that PDF copy. So now you'll be able to use this data submission wizard to do both. We'll be using this wizard for both WIOA 2 submission and CAEP submission. So you won't need those separate PDFs anymore when you're completing the quarterly data requirements. So again, you'll just run through the wizard, you know, and again, complete that wizard. Again, in this case, on or before October 31st, that will be the first time we use this. So again, the beauty is you don't need to send that DIR separately. Next slide. New agency toolkit. This is designed with new WIOA 2 agencies in mind, but should be useful for WIOA 2 and CAEP. Lots of new information available for new agencies, you know, a lot of ways to relate things like instructional information to your data, information on how to contact CAEP, CDE, and CASAS, and so on. Next slide. Another update is we've been completing those studies related to GED and HiSET. So in the good old days, you know, meaning back in 2002 and 2014, we always had those studies that directly connected CASAS results with students' results on the GED and HiSET. So we've been updating it, so it's now updated to also have that information for CASAS goals. So we've been working on it for about a year, and we're just about finished with both GED and HiSET. So that should, number one, just give you the reassurance that if a student does well on their CASAS testing, that directly correlates to positive performance on GED and HiSET. We haven't really been able to claim that about goals until recently because we didn't have the data. Now we do, but it's obviously very important on our end to be able to say once CASAS scores improve, that's good information for you to use to decide whether a student should take the GED and or take that HiSET. The other big advantage is here on the screen, where it will give you those GED and HiSET subsection results. That is, it will look at the students' goals results and basically use those results from CASAS goals to make some general conclusions by subsection as to whether the student appears ready to pass for each subsection or not. I'll just say overall, that's been one of the most popular aspects of our instructional reports, period. Okay, so thank you, Barbara. Next slide. So another CASAS update, not really for what's going on now, but a big update for everybody is we've updated our CASAS accommodations page. This is something we don't really get into all that much, but it's definitely something that's existed forever. That is part of the process is obviously we need to have a lot of information related to how you can make accommodations for learners with disabilities. So we've had that accommodations paper for 20 years or more. So we've updated this, related it to documentation that you need to provide accommodations. And then in particular, we've also updated our accommodations for visual impairments, which has always been a really thorny issue for us and for agencies. So here's the link that goes to that accommodation section. but again, a lot more step-by-step, you know, rules and guidelines you can use to do this, because we know that it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it really can be confusing. So a little more step-by-step on that. Next slide. I think that might be the last one. Oh, one more. So we have the I3 reports. So to be clear, I3 stands for Immigrant Integration Indicators, III or I3. So it seems like a world away, but back to AB 2098 for immigrant integration. Before we shut down for quarantine mode, this was a really, really big issue. There was a committee that met in late 2018 and the entire first half of 2019 talking about it and outlining some issues for measuring students and immigrant immigration. There's a lot of things they came up with, but from the CASAS point of view, one of the big things they identified is they related these immigrant integration outcomes to EL Civics COAPs, with the idea that EL Civics has been around for almost 20 years. It's something that everybody knew already, and it's not exactly the same, but it is at least very, very, very similar to what we're talking about as priorities for immigrant integration. So what the reports are doing is it's connecting AB 2098 outcomes to, you know, long-standing EL Civics COAPs outcomes and providing this as outcomes for CAEP agencies. So one big issue is it's adding a new column to the CAEP summary. There will now be an additional outcome you can monitor called I3 or something similar, which will give you the number of outcomes, that is number of EL Civics COAPs that students passed that relate directly to immigrant integration indicators. The other one is more like this slide, where it's looking at the actual COAPs themselves, making a COAP statement about what the underlying content is and relating it by student, by class, or by agency. So with this one, I'll use CASAS competencies as the parallel, where a lot of you are familiar with those CASAS competency reports. You can look at it again by agency, by class, or by student and see overall what particular competencies are areas of strength versus specific areas of weakness. You can do the same things with these I3 reports, with the difference being it's based on COAP or immigrant immigration indicator rather than by CASAS competency, but the same type of test results information identifying additional areas of strength and additional areas for improvement. Okay, proxy, yes, there is a change in the proxy date range for 1 year and 1 year only. We'll move proxy to January 1, 2020. I don't want to get too much into proxy because I'm about out of time, but normally the date range goes back to May 12th. That is, you can carbon copy tests dated back as far as May 12th. This year, because of all the obvious issues, we're going to allow you to go back to January 1 rather than May 12th, with the idea that a lot of you might have tested there in February, March, before everything closed down. So that will allow you to use those tests that you might have done directly before closure and use it as a pre-test this year as a way to hopefully alleviate some of that testing you might need to do to get students started in class and so on. And I think I'm out of time now, so I'll stop. I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. I'll just say any questions at this point. For the proxy, well, sort of. I mean, yes, technically, if you do that and that only, obviously that won't give you a measurable skills gain, but it will at least make it easier for you to get the pre-post pair. So again, proxy, you're looking at tests that were administered late the previous year. What the proxy does technically is, again, the word I like to use is carbon copy. It carbon copies tests from late in the year and gives it a date stamp of July 1. So that same test can also be used as a pre-test this year. So it doesn't give you an MSG, but it does make it easier for you to get a pre-post test pair in the 2021 year to give you a better shot at an MSG. You can run the wizard anytime. There isn't really a deadline to run the wizard. There is, like I said, a date range that's built in. So the deadline, you might say, has more to do with the date range that's built into the wizard rather than a deadline as to when you're required to run it. Again, usually it runs from a pretty strict date range. It's only tests between May 12th and June 30th. Again, this year, the date range is much wider and much more lenient, and I would say it's that way for all the obvious reasons. So again, it runs all the way back, reaches all the way back to January 1 this year instead of only May 12th like it would in a quote-unquote normal year. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jay, and thank you to everyone who have been listening and also contributing in the chat by asking and answering questions. We are going to move forward with one of the areas that were of most importance to you all when you took the topics poll, and adult education reopening for 2020-21 was the most important area that everyone said that they were dealing with or that they wanted to engage in conversation about during this regional network meeting. And so of that, we wanted to know which of the three areas regarding reopening were of most importance. And so as you can see from this chart here, that remote testing, as Jay has been presenting about, remote testing was the #1. And then next to remote testing, we also have registration and enrollment, as well as instruction and teacher instruction training. And so what we want to do now is we do have another short poll that we have created just to kind of get more information from you all about where you stand when it comes to reopening, as well as the use of technology and devices and the professional development that you have planned for the fall. So I'm going to launch a poll at this time. And if I can have everyone please participate in the poll, just 3 simple questions that are asking, you know, does your agency have a solid plan for reopening with distance learning for the fall? Has your adult education program been included in any K-12 device distributions? And are you prepared with professional development on strategies and resources for remote teaching and learning for the fall? So if I can have everyone please just answer those 3 polls, I will additionally help guide our conversation this afternoon. And I'm seeing that people are participating, so thank you so much. Once we close the poll, I'll be able to share the results with everyone. We're seeing about close to 40% participation at this time. So we'll leave it open for at least another half a minute or so. And thank you all so much for participating in this poll. So we're looking at close to half who have participated thus far. And as we're working through this poll, if you have any additional questions related to remote testing, reopening, registration, enrollment process, definitely feel free to use the chat, or you can speak out loud if you'd like. Okay, we have about 60% who have completed the poll, so we'll leave it open for about another 15 seconds or so. Okay, thank you, Sachiko, for letting us know that #2 is not for your agency, but you had your own distribution plan through the CARES Act. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. So on your screen, you should see the results. And so of the number of participants who participated, which there were about 36, excuse me, yes, 36 who participated. So 94% said that your agency has a solid plan for reopening with distance learning for the fall. And then the majority were not included in K-12. And we've been seeing that across the various regions that we have been engaging with over the past week or so. And the last one, are you prepared with professional development on strategies and resources for remote teaching and learning for the fall? And 86% said yes. So that's great. And for those of you who said no, we definitely will have some additional opportunities and resources available to you for PD. All right, so one of the things before we move on to technology and distance learning, one of the things that we wanted to know from you all is kind of what's going on in your respective agencies. And so a question that we had wanted to ask was, as it relates to adult education reopening, what barriers have you experienced while implementing remote testing? So if I can have someone mute themselves to talk about what barriers they have experienced with remote testing, if any, and additionally, what successes have you, if you have successfully transitioned to remote testing, how have you successfully done so? Please feel free to unmute yourself. I see, I can't pronounce your first name, but someone typed in the chat, a lot of our students do not have their own devices, only have their phone, okay? And so barriers of no computers, laptops, tablets, or know how to use their smartphones. Definitely student technology is a big barrier for us as well, okay?
This is Thatcher with Kern.
Hi, Thatcher.
Hi, Veronica. Yeah, for our larger schools, the major issue is just the number of students we have to test, and you know, only being limited to 5 students for the remote testing. And then we have we had a purchase of 500 Chromebooks for our consortium that we've distributed to our members to help the students who need hardware. But we still do have those issues with lack of internet, and, you know, 500 for the size of our consortium isn't going to cover everybody that is in need, but we have started that. We're trying to figure out ways to continue that throughout the fall and this year.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Thatcher. And then we also have Lalanis, who said, we tried to order Chromebooks, but we're told that there is a worldwide shortage, so our order will not arrive until next year. We heard that on the last regional network meeting call as well. And there was someone a little further up who had mentioned that they, about the distribution plan through the CARES Act. So Sachiko, or if you're available, would you mind unmuting yourself and tell us a little bit more about your distribution plan through the CARES Act?
Yes, so our college received, I am not sure exactly how much we received, but we are using the funds to purchase Chromebooks and internet hotspots. And so far we have distributed over 150 Chromebooks and slightly lower number of hotspots to non-credit students, adult ed, you know, adult high school, GED, and ESL students.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for elaborating on your plan through the CARES Act. Definitely a great way to leverage more resources in order to get your students what they need. And so I know that there are a lot of people who are speaking upon barriers for no computers, laptops, or tablets, or know how to use their smartphones. Is there anyone on the call who have potentially found a resolution, especially as it relates to the use of smartphones, since we know that that is a device that our students do have and do have access to? We do have a question from Lalanis, and please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name, but they asked, how do we get access to the CARES Act? Sachiko, do you mind talking about how your agency got access to the CARES Act? And we also have a link on the CAEP website that I'll be able to post in the chat as well.
Yes, I believe as part of a community college, the community college system, we received funding based on the students we serve, but I am not sure how things were determined. I'm sorry, I cannot help too much here, but your agency, I'm not sure for K-12, do you have access to CARES Act as well, or is it just for higher ed?
So the CARES Act funding went to K-12. I don't know if they had to apply for it or not. So as an adult school, do I have access to apply as well, or am I supposed to be part of the K-12 distribution?
That might be a question to your district. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yes, and we can definitely, I don't know the answer to that question. If anyone else does, definitely feel free to unmute yourself and let us know, but it's something that I can take back and try to research and answer for you. Yeah, so we will continue the conversation with how does adult schools get access to the CARES Act. And Sherry shared, or she wants to know, for those of you that are distributing devices to students, are you concerned with students not returning the devices? Many of our schools will not loan our devices in fear of losing them. And Thatcher has offered an answer and says that their IT department shut down the devices remotely and basically make them useless. Okay, and then we have, Sherry, there was also in the spring, there were some consortia who had drawn up like loan agreements and shared them with their students, and basically the school and the students signed off on them, kind of like a memo of understanding that they will return them. And we have samples of those loan agreements on the CAEP website on the COVID-19 page. So I'll post that URL here if you want to take a look at those resources. And then C. Chavez says, students do not know how to use their smartphones, which makes it difficult to teach how to download apps such as Zoom or use their email. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. In our technology and distance learning section, I'm sure Netta will be able to speak to that or find you resources that will help in that area. Okay, and moving past that, there was a comment from Greg. One of the issues that we have in the Salinas Valley is that while students have cell phones, they do not have unlimited data plans. We have handed out Wi-Fi hotspots and a number of Chromebooks. We are transitioning our incarcerated students to at-low devices, which will free up Chromebooks. Okay. Great, thank you for sharing how you were able to leverage other resources and be able to provide more to your adult students. Okay, so I will turn it over. Thank you all very much for engaging in that conversation about reopening plans as well as the use of technology and devices. I am going to turn it over to Netta Enisari with OTAN, who will get us started talking about the services that OTAN provides as well as distance and technology during this time. And please continue the conversation in the chat, and then when she's done presenting, we'll open it back up for discussion. Netta?
Hi, Veronica. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Netta Anasari here, a technology projects coordinator with OTAN, and I saw a high percentage of PD prep ones that have already have been actively providing their teachers with PD and ones that possibly needs additional support, along with a high number of you who have reopening plans. I was really happy to see that. So let's see how OTAN can help. So OTAN has a number of resources and tools, and I'm sure many of you were able to access a lot of our webinars throughout the summer, but towards the end of spring and then throughout the summer. And hopefully our COVID-19 field support page has been useful. So what I want to do is I want to go live and kind of walk through a couple of those resources with you. So I'm going to ask Veronica to stop sharing her screen so that I can kind of take over here. Perfect, thank you. And let's see. All right, let's go live into the OTAN website. See if there's a couple of items that you can access to help you start up your fall semester. So always the top story is going to be the activities that OTAN is providing for the week. But I definitely want to bring, there was a question in the chat about, accessing Zoom and some of the email resources and such. So I'll show you where the recordings are for the webinars, but I also want to bring your attention to this OTAN office hours. So in addition to the webinars, the live webinars, and the recorded webinars that we offer, we do have a dedicated OTAN office hours. So that means that you can pop in, doesn't matter what your level is, beginning, intermediate, or high, and or if you want specific help on how to assist students with email or how to access Zoom and some of those other resources, you have dedicated OTAN project specialists along with trainers on the line to help guide you through some of those resources. So anybody that pops in with Google Classroom questions or Moodle questions, there's a dedicated time here you can see on Tuesdays and Thursdays that will provide you some additional assistance, kind of hands-on additional assistance. So please definitely utilize that. We hope to see you there. On the very top here, we'll go back to the slides in just a minute, but the first resource is the COVID-19 field support page. So let me walk you through a couple of items here that your teachers will benefit from that can assist them with their startup and their distance learning classes. So there are resources here at OTAN, and this resources to continue teaching and learning guide is very helpful. I have to give a shout out to our project specialist, Anthony Burek, who built this in the spring and posted it online for all of our agencies to be able to access. And this is anything and everything resources and tools related to accessing your students and assisting them through how to get online. So if this is the resource on one side of the table. On the other side, if OTAN has supported some of those resources, it'll give you a direct link as well. So what I love about this is also this outline guide here. So if you're looking for tools specifically on communications, you can click on communications, and this will guide you through the topic and the resource on how to communicate with your students online. Let's say you're looking for additional assistance with assessments, you can click on assessment, and this will give you more information on how to access resources and tools on assessment. And if OTAN wrote something about it, whether a web-based class activity and or a teaching with technology resource, then the link will be here on the other side of the table. There's some resources that are broken up for ESL and of course ABE, ASC, and CTE. So please utilize this resource guide. I have found that it's been very beneficial to several of our agencies. So one of our agencies that graduated from our DLAC 2, our Digital Leadership Academy, also built us a I Can Go the Distance. So basically built with a group of other educators in California on some resources to help you assist your students via distance learning. So it's kind of built like a menu, right? So for ESL, we have some starters for you. You have the first course, the second course, and maybe some desserts on. So if you're interested in looking at how to possibly build a distance learning resource or a distance learning class for that matter, you can kind of start here. We have broken it up for ESL, for citizenship, ABE, HSE. So those are additional resources. So HSEs, you can see, you're still using some of the Remind apps, some of the communication tools, how to get started kind of with Zoom. Your second course is possibly free and free resources that you can access through Learning Express Hub, Score Boost on GED Practice, and so on. So definitely utilize this resource as well. All right, we have additional resources. I'll go through the Ready, Set, Go guide in just a minute here. We have our friends over at West Contra Costa who shared with us their remote learning via student mobile phones handout. So if you get an opportunity, please visit that. I do want to go over to the webinars, the previously recorded webinars that OTAN has offered. So this table basically started in March when we got our orders to stay home, and then OTAN started some live webinars for you. So if you see a webinar that you like, you always have the presentation slides. The recordings are coming soon. We have recordings up through May 22nd. But this is a very long table. So what we did for you, close your eyes, sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy. At the end of this table is an index. So we'll go over some survey results in just a minute here, but if you've identified that you need additional resources for ABE and ASC, then you can find it through this index here and find specific resources to address your ASC population or your teachers that are looking for additional resources. We partnered with our friends at CASAS, and we delivered a couple of trainings. So if you're looking at some of those previously recorded webinars, we have them here, along with digital literacy pieces that you might need for either your teachers or your students, pieces on equity and so on. So definitely utilize, I hope you can utilize this resource for some of your PD. Let's go back up to the top here. And I don't want you to forget about our standing resources under the resources tab, which is our teaching with technology tool, and I'll head over there. And this tool, you'll be able to find resources that are specific to your ABE, ASE, ESL population. So if you go into some resources for ABE, you'll find, 20 things I learned about boroughs and the web. And this is a step-by-step guide on what to do, the activity description, and how you can incorporate it in your course online. And if we visit our curriculum offers page, you'll be able to find some additional resources, some open educational resources, some not, through OTAN. CK12, which is a resource for our high school diploma or high school equivalency students. This is an open educational resource along with other opportunities for your students. And maybe you're looking at specific training or offers for your teachers. The ISTE Skill Rise initiative is an initiative that is assisting adult learners. If you're familiar with the ISTE standards, the ISTE standards is really heavy in K-12, and they're bridging that towards our adult students, and they've called it the Skill Rise initiative. They have a course dedicated to building capacity and leveraging educational technology resources. So I strongly encourage your team to look at the Skill Rise website, which is linked here. I always remind everybody to please become a member of OTAN. And the reason why is you'll get notified whenever there's an opportunity for a webinar or additional resources as we post them. So if you join OTAN and fill out your membership, you can choose to select to get emails and how often you get emails, and or you can go back to the main page and either like us on any of the social media platforms here, or you can go directly to our YouTube channel or subscribe there, and you'll get notified when we post a video on our YouTube channel. So let's see, let me actually go into, so the next slide, I'm gonna stop share. We're gonna bring up the next slide here. And Veronica, thank you. It's going to be kind of funny because I'm going to bring up the next slide, but then I'm going to ask you to kind of go back out so I can go back live. But just so you know, all the slides today are accessible to you. I see that Veronica posted them in the chat, and they are live links, and you'll have some additional resources in the notes sections of the slides. So if you cannot access the link, just present the slides, and then your links will be active and you'll be able to click on them. That's just a reminder there. So it's obvious that technology and distance learning has ranked pretty high, right? So we have been working with some of our partners, World Ed and the Open Door Collective and Pro Literacy, who've written us guides and some handbooks. And so I want to be able to share those with you. you have access to the slides. It's also in the notes sections. All these links that I'm going to be sharing with you today are on the notes section of the slides. But I do, as I'm bringing it up, I would like to ask our audience if there are some that are willing to share some of their plans for distance learning. So I know, Sachiko, you shared hotspots and devices for your learners, but I'm wondering, so what are the plans for your students to do with those devices? How are you engaging them online? If you don't mind answering that question for me. And it's not only for Sachiko, it's for anybody on the line that's willing to share. I'd love to hear from you. Sachiko, are you still there? Willing to share? No, huh? Anybody else? Sherry, are you available to unmute and share, or maybe share in the chat? I see John is on the line, if he still is. I'm kind of picking on people at this point, huh? Lorianne, excuse me, sorry about that.
Netta,
Yeah.
Greg, Ludwa said that he can share.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Greg.
Hi. Even prior to COVID-19, we were pretty much set up for distance learning. In fact, all our students, including our incarcerated students at the Monterey County Jail, were using online curricula. So currently we're using Odysseyware and Edgenuity for our high school diploma and HiSET prep. We're using ICEV for industry certifications in our career readiness and entry reentry. We are using ACT work keys online. What else? Oh yeah, virtual job shadow with our adults at both, and these are both students in independent study and students who are incarcerated. Though we have a problem with the incarcerated because we have a very high percentage of COVID-19 being tested at the jail, 42% at this point. So right now we're in lockdown, but we're still running our independent study programs. But it was relatively easy to make the transition because the only thing we really used paper-based work on was the HiSET prep. So we've transitioned more to the Odysseyware and Edgenuity side of it and using that for our HiSET prep.
And you're using the Atlo device, correct, to connect those students?
We haven't received them yet, but we have them on order. Yes, and I did get a private question about the Atlo devices.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to share that or you want me to share that.
Go ahead. Yeah, tell everybody what the Atlo device does.
So the Atlo device is a laptop, not a Chromebook, but a laptop that is basically developed to be used in incarceration facilities. It's used throughout Louisiana, I believe, and Ohio right now. I don't know anybody besides us that is planning on using it inside California, but it is a device that is specifically made to be used inside the jail. What basically it is all the devices are connected through a server which emulates the web. So the students are not actually have access to the web, they actually have access to the server, and then the server provides the content to the devices. But what it allows us to do is that it will allow us to do remote HiSET testing since it's already approved. It also will allow us to do CASAS testing inside the jail, and we can use them outside, though for the testing part of it, we have standalone desktops that are approved to use for any of the testing. But basically what it is you rent the devices, they maintain it, you tell them what curriculum you want, and whatever licenses that you're using, like we have our Edgenuity and our Odysseyware licenses, our ICV licenses, the company puts the licenses right onto the devices and you use it directly through the devices. Yeah. So Did that answer the question?
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you. It reminds me, the Outlook devices remind me of the Rachel device, but except the Outlook is a standalone device, right? Like a Chromebook, whereas Rachel is more of a portable hotspot.
Yes, and we also, we're looking at the Rachel Devices Act too, as far as using those inside the, particularly inside the jail. But the Rachel devices also are interesting for our very rural areas that don't have good internet or cell phone connectivity. And we've been looking at that for the Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium about installing those into, for instance, churches or those kinds of areas where students could come and use the device and connect and then, you know, do their work actually there without having to pay for the spaces.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Greg. We have in the chat some that are using Microsoft Teams. The high school diploma students are doing packets with times for students to ask for help online. So they're doing kind of an office hours as well. For ESL, they're doing class time through Teams. Fantastic. So they're doing more asynchronous, synchronous kind of a setting here, right? And then Adele is willing to share with us. Adele, can you unmute? Okay, did I lose Adele?
Hello?
Oh, there
Sorry
you go.
about that.
Hi.
I couldn't find my own square. Sorry about that. Basically, I have a rural school and a very rural school. So at my just simply rural school, we are using Odyssey-ware. We are having for our students that might need some sort of adaptions through with our special ed teacher, they come in one at a time on a as needed basis. My very, very rural school, we're just mailing stuff out and bringing it back in. Our local community college is completely online. And all of us, I think, in my region have gone to some sort of online application utilizing Google and Google Classrooms.
Okay.
Two of our schools have some synchronous and asynchronous classes going on. I do not. I just have I shifted from having like 80% online to having pretty much 98% online in Apple. And then Lucerne is in such an area that they really do not have any Wi-Fi, so really mailing was our only option. But the trainings have been very, very valuable that we've gotten through TAP and Google in our super region.
That's great. Have you accessed any of the applied digital skills through Google at all?
My teachers have, yes, absolutely.
Oh, great. Wonderful. So on this slide here that you're seeing, we talk about digital literacy courses and the importance there, along with access, equity, inclusion, and some additional resources that are needed maybe to address some of those assessments. So I walked you through a couple of the resources of the recorded webinars and the additional slides that are associated to them. As far as the digital literacy courses, so I mentioned to Adele the Applied Digital Skills course through Google, and that's available. North Star also has a course, and let's see here.
I'm sorry, are you referring to maybe an Applied Digital Skills badge for students?
So Google actually has a built course that to walk you through beginning through all the way to advanced on digital literacy. So you can actually access this course. It's already built into the learning. It's built into Google Classroom basically. Okay. And so if your students, if you have lower level, students, whether they're ABE or ESL, they could potentially take the course. If you're looking for additional courses, this is an OER, an open educational resource, and you can build it into your Google Classroom. So I would suggest, I don't know if you saw where the webinar recordings are located on the OTAN website, but there is one on April 28th on Applied Digital Skills, and you'll be able to access the recording along with additional resources on how to get started at your agency. And this is free. It's a free course through Google.
Okay, thank you. I actually think I had 3 teachers that were on it. I don't think we thought about having it set up where we could actually train our students to be digitally certified, but that's an excellent option. Thank you.
And then North Star also offers an additional resource for digital literacy, and that's also for free.
Okay.
So definitely look at some of those notes and in our slides on the slides that you're looking at here. So Veronica sent you the attachment. So in the notes section, you'll be able to find additional resources there and hot links to
very
take you.
much.
Of course.
Okay.
All right, so I'm being told that I am running out of time. If I have, let's see if I have any questions. Okay, if there are any questions, I'll stay on chat, but I'll hand it right back over to Veronica.
Thank you, Netta. We actually had a few more minutes in this section. So if you wanted to continue the conversation, you are more than welcome to, or we can move on to the supportive services and then we can come back.
Okay, actually, yeah. So if you give me, let me go into additional items that could help support some distance learning efforts here through our partners, World Ed. And so if you stop sharing, I'll take over again. Okay, this is my screen again. This is our beautiful OTAN website. I do want to show you on our COVID-19 field support page, you'll be able to go directly into this from World Ed bullet, ready, set, go, steps to rapidly start your distance learning instruction. And this is written by the EdTech Center through World Education. And so basically it walks you through the steps on how to develop your distance learning course. So if we have some agencies that are interested in kind of looking at where do we start? So it tells you step by step, making a communication plan, making a list, how to help your learners access free and reduced cost internet data plans. So this is a really helpful resource to get either your teachers looking at or your administrators, but please, when you get an opportunity, definitely look at this. The link also, there's additional links on the slide before, the one that was the ranking of most importance for distance learning. Also showed additional resources on tips for distance learning through the EdTech Center. So again, OTAN does partner with World Ed, and they are in their IDEAL consortium as a California representative. And so the IDEAL consortium through the EdTech Center also offers an IDEAL handbook. And this IDEAL handbook will also give you step-by-step directions on what it is to offer blended and distance learning. So there are many resources here in addition to just kind of resources and tools that OTAN offers, but also some publications and additional assistance through our partners here. The Open Door Collective, the EdTech Center, and Pro Literacy also provided a rapid response report from the field. And so you'll get to read about some of the programs that have built some courses in the spring and the summer and some of their strategies and reports. So some of their key takeaways and other issues that they ran into and may have been able to address. So I definitely encourage you to look at this report. I'm going to go back into the field support page and also kind of go through the COVID-19 field support page, where you'll find some resources from our partners, CalPro, CASAS, the CDE, the CAEP office. But then if you're looking at the free and low cost internet and devices for students, there are some stories from North Orange, McFarland Adult School, and other organizations on how they were able to address some of those loan distribution. I'm going to contact Santa Barbara and Sachiko to get some additional resources from her to pop into this page, but I strongly suggest looking at some of these and see if they can assist you in some of your efforts here. All right, I think those are my 5 minutes. I'll stop sharing. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you, Netta. And I believe I am back sharing the PowerPoint. And I also just popped into the chat where today's regional network meeting will be house that after starting tomorrow. And then I'll also post the COVID-19 page as well. And so for student support services, this was another area of importance that we had asked about. And so we wanted to know kind of where this landed in terms of areas of importance. And so overall student support services was number 3 out of the 5 different areas we asked about. And these are the results from the ranking poll. And then student support services, the 3 subtopics that were of most importance for our agencies who participated were employment, as well as counseling/transition services. And we also had mental health support as another top subtopic. So if anyone on the line today, if you would like to, share with us how you all have addressed employment for your adult learners in the state of our economy, as well as how you are continuing and have kind of navigated counseling and transition services to a remote platform. And then also if there are any partnerships that you've leveraged to provide your adult learners with mental health support or any other student support services that will continue to help students during this unprecedented time. So if I can have anybody unmute themselves and share with us. Hi, Vilma.
Hi, Veronica. Hi, everyone. How everybody is doing in this time. What we have in regard of mental health is that our transition specialist, that is also a mental health consultant, she has created these videos that she creates once a week, and it talks about how to deal with stress, how to organize, how to deal with all the new stress that we have in the home with the children, and doing homework doing school from home, and their children if they have children. So Maribel has done a really good job putting all those videos together. So she registered them on YouTube and sent us the link, and we send it to all the students. So that is how we are helping the student, because it's a new and innovative way to do it. We are not at the on campus yet. We are starting coming back, but not everyone, so no full staff yet. We are in K-12, so the schools are not being open. So creating these videos for our students has been the best way to reach out. They still can call us and let us know if they need anything. We provide resources on hand for teachers, for administrators in the different districts within the consortium, and we have been sending information, whether it's Google Text or is the other one, the parent squares, because the majority of our members are K-12. So that is how we are helping the students, in addition to the laptop or Chromebooks and the Mi-Fi for the ones who don't have internet access. So that is what we are doing over here in Merced, Mariposa area. Thank you, everyone. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Vilma. Definitely appreciate you sharing about the videos to support our adult learners as well as their students during this time of remote learning. Are those videos, are they public? Is it something that we can share?
Yes, the videos are public. They are in YouTube. I could send you the information on the link, and everybody can use it. So these are the times that we share everything. Is very difficult times, and we are here to help as much as we can to anyone. So I will send the link to Veronica, so you can see the videos that she has produced during these times. I think we have like 4 or 5 already. Not sure, but yes, I will send the link with Veronica.
Okay, thank you so much, Vilma, and we'll definitely get those videos out to the rest of the field so that anyone who's in need of a a resource like that will have access to it. And I also see that Kim Walker had posted in the chat, we have a regional transitional counselor who is available via virtual sessions. And then sharing the virtual comm room our district has created to help support SEL. Okay, thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that resource as well. We will definitely get that out to the field. And I have Ping, who would like to share with us how the State Center Consortium has been supporting their students during this time. Ping?
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share what State Center has been doing with State Center Adult Education Consortium. We have a team of transition specialists. There's the 4 of us. We've always embedded supportive services with transition services in the past prior to the school closing down. And I think one thing I want to highlight with the transition team coming into place this is our 4th year serving State Center, is our great collaboration with our college members and the workforce centers being co-located there. And, just working closely to be updated with all our CDOs. Now more than ever, students need to be aware of what resources are available to them, all those who are unemployed. And so, we sit in on a weekly call with the Fresno County CDO call to hear about all the updates, all the services, financial resources from United Way and all the major partners, and where testing can be done so that we can stay updated about who's doing what and be able to communicate that back to our administrators and our teachers. Now that we're started teleworking and not actually on site, there are challenges. We can't just go into a classroom and do a presentation and share updates. And so, we've looked at different ways of working more closely now than ever with teachers to be able to share information, find out what platform the sites are using, if it's Google Meet, if it's Zoom, and being able to still pop into their classroom for a quick announcement to remind them about our services. And we're adding more of a student interface to our website to be able for students who do have access to technology to request an appointment with us, and we get that alert right away. If not, sharing it with the teacher, so that way when the teacher meets with the student, we're serving 14 adult schools and working closely with 4 community colleges. So we have a huge geographical location from Oakhurst all the way to Reedley and Dinuba. And so, we're spread thin, but communication and collaboration is key, essential, because we want to keep the students in school so that they can finish their goals. And even from not only talking about college and career and employment, but wellness call. How are they doing? What support do they need? From housing to utility bill to food, shelter, and staying up to date on all this information. So really, our one goal is to really work closely with the teachers this year to be able to channel and find out what the students' needs are and how we can get a hold of the students, if it's by text, by phone, by Google Meet, Zoom, all the other platform, because we work in a lot of our smaller adult schools. Students don't have access to a computer, a Chromebook, to technology, so we are depending on a phone call, on a text, to provide services in whatever method we can to reach out to students and continue to outreach, continue to provide transition and support services, and finding out where the students are at and going to their level to ensure that they are safe, they are comfortable, and that they're going to continue with school and navigating through all that information. So it is challenging times because some students are not comfortable, they're scared, or they're busy supporting their students at home. But, this has also increased our accessibility. We have appointments at night, workshops, orientations at night. So, just really tapping into, increased partnerships and leveraging our resources with our colleges and our workforce center to be able to meet more students' needs.
Thank you so much, Ping. Thank you for sharing that wealth of information about how you all are continuing to support your students during this time. There were a few things that stuck out to me, especially the leveraging of resources and the partnerships that you all are maintaining in order to make sure that your students they have access to opportunities such as employment and things of that nature. But then also the, taking it down to the basic level of how they are doing during this time is so important. It gives them, motivation and, that sense of this is an educational institution, but they truly do care about what's going on with us at this time. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Kim, I see that you have typed in the chat that you are referring students to 211 as well as it looks like connecty.org. I think that's the correct URL. Do you mind unmuting yourself to let us know what the connecty.org is all about?
Sure. So our district is partnered with Dial 211, and it's actually connectie.org, which is short for connectinlandempire.org. So it's a resource of partners that they can either voice dial 211, or they can go to that website and look for food, shelter, housing, childcare, assistive devices. It's been kind of our go-to for anyone who needs any type of resource. But Dial 211, I believe, is statewide, so that might be a resource for other agencies to look into.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that. And maybe others might be able to develop that partnership with 211 and kind of develop the same type of framework with the URL as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I have Leanne says that some of the instructors also use WhatsApp with students, so another form of communication to reach students. And anyone else would like to unmute themselves and talk a little bit about how you are supporting your students in any of these subtopics that we have listed here, or if there are other innovative ways that you are continuing to support your students during this time. We have about 3 more minutes before we are done for this regional network meeting.
Hi, this is Christian Regalado from the Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to talk briefly about some of the support services that we are doing over here in the Valley. So we partnered up with the Monterey County Workforce Development and the America's Job Center here in our county. And so anytime there's kind of employment positions becoming available, usually one of us disseminated amongst our members, and then the members kind of, they possibly pass it down to the teachers, and then it possibly gets to the students. So that's some of the partnerships that we're kind of working with as far as employment. Again, it's the Workforce Development Board and then the America's Job Center. Was it transition and counseling? I know Greg put a comment in the chat box that we did hire, somebody that helps with that transition piece. Right now, I've kind of been helping with that as well. So just students who are looking to make that transition to Hartnell, which is community college, we help them. Right now, it's been a lot of one-on-one. I know that's been kind of a recurring theme, right? This whole virtual reality is forcing us to. Can you please turn it down? Sorry, my son had the TV full blast. But it's just it's very. We're having to take our time trying to help them, but definitely we don't want to stop supporting our students with whatever it is. And if it's a transition piece, we're having to take time to do that for them, As far as the mental health piece, we did, during the summer, we ran a social emotional learning workshop. Right now we're in discussions to kind of continue doing that just because all of our members saw a need to do that. And so, and the need for it. And so we're planning on possibly doing this in probably September, if not the following month in October. And so that's with that in mind, the social emotional piece, we definitely see that. One of the awesome things about our consortium was as soon as the shelter in place kind of hit, Kristen Arps, who's our director, she kind of gathered everybody and we had kind of these work groups. And so we had different work groups working in different areas, and student support services area was one of the pieces that she really wanted us to kind of focus on. And so we, as a consortium, we are working together. Some of our members, I know earlier somebody mentioned 211. And so we do have 211 here in Monterey County. And so we make active referrals. So if when we see students who need certain support services or certain things that we cannot provide, then we refer them to the 211 active referral network. Some of our members are short-staffed, so what we created within the consortium was those members that were short-staffed. We kind of have an internal spreadsheet, and so basically some of our members just put regular, just not detailed information, but just contact information for certain students who may need support services. And so I'm kind of tasked with reaching out to those students, and kind of how it was mentioned, it's not just, you know, hey, let's connect you to resources, but it's really checking in to see how are they doing, how can we help, and then just kind of following up. You know, it's one thing to just connect them with resources and just letting it be, but, you know, checking, you know, in the week or so after that initial conversation, and just checking and seeing how they're doing. And so that's kind of a brief kind of idea or kind of scope of kind of what we're doing here in the Salinas Valley. But yes, the student support piece, I mean, we consider that important, and we're still learning. We're still figuring out ways. We're definitely trying to figure out ways to leverage some of those partnerships that we had before the shelter in place, trying to find out how they're operating. And then once that's figured out, then continue to do the referrals and the connecting to the resources for our students.
Great. Thank you so much, Christian, for letting us know what's going on within your consortium, the Salinas Valley Consortium. And definitely, I appreciated hearing how the consortium is working together to meet the needs of students, because the individual agencies are understaffed at this time. So that's wonderful that you all are collaborating on that level. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone else for your time and your participation in today's regional network meeting. We really hope that within this meeting and within this context that you have, you know, heard some ideas that you may not have had access to before, and learned something new that you will be able to take back to your consortium as well as your agency, and hopefully for practical implementation. I didn't see any more questions in the chat, but if you do have any questions, or if you'd like to discuss something further, definitely feel free to reach out to Tab at caladulted.org, and we could start the conversation on our end and reach more of the consortia within the state to get you your answers. I do have a note to follow up regarding K-12 adult education agencies and the CARES Act to see what information that we can find out on that topic. I also posted in the chat the URL for where the regional network meeting recording will be located, as well as the PowerPoint presentation and the resources that were shared today. So if you need to access this information at another time, or if you'd like to share with other colleagues who were unable to be present today, you'll have an opportunity to do so. And I see that Jay has asked about, I have a few questions about deliverables as my site no longer has WIL2 funding and is strictly CAP. Well, definitely reach out to tab@caladulted.org, and we can answer all of your questions regarding CAP deliverables, and also point you to our due dates calendar, so you can see where all of the CAP deliverables, when they are due. So definitely reach out to tab@caladulted.org, and we can get you the resources you need about the deliverables for CAP. So again, thank you to the CAP office. Thank you to Javier Romero, as well as Dr. Carolyn Zachary, who could not be here today, CAP Tab, Jay Wright from CASAS, as well as Netta Anasari from OTAN. Thank you all very much for contributing to today's regional network meeting. And thank you again to all of our attendees. We hope that today was beneficial for you, and we hope to see you in the future. Thank you all so much, and everyone have a great day.